Imagine waking up in a world where your lights don't turn on. The familiar click of the switch is met with nothing but darkness. The soft hum of appliances, the gentle glow of your alarm clock, the comforting buzz of electricity, all gone. You stumble out of bed, confused, reaching for your phone, hoping for answers, but the screen stays dark, or maybe it lights up, but there's no signal, no connection to the outside world. The silence is heavy, pressing in on you, broken only by the distant sound of footsteps in the hallway, as your neighbors realize something is wrong too. You try to call a friend, but the call won't go through. You check the news, but there's nothing. No updates, no explanations. You decide to head outside, searching for answers, and make your way to the nearest supermarket. But when you arrive, the shelves are bare. The usual abundance of food and supplies has vanished overnight. People wander the aisles in disbelief, clutching empty baskets, their faces etched with worry and confusion. The sense of normalcy you once took for granted is slipping away, replaced by uncertainty and fear. Stepping back outside, you notice the city itself feels different. Streets that are usually bustling with life are eerily empty. The usual sounds, cars, voices, music, are missing. Instead, there's a strange, unsettling silence, as if the world is holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. The quiet is both peaceful and terrifying, amplifying your sense of isolation. But then, the silence shatters. Somewhere nearby you hear shouting, the sound of hurried footsteps, the clatter of shopping carts. Panic is spreading. People are running, desperate to find what little they can. The city is no longer silent, but filled with the noise of fear and confusion. In this new world, the absence of power has changed everything, leaving you to wonder what happens next. At first glance, you might think you're looking at a scene from a post-apocalyptic film, silent streets, empty squares, and a city shrouded in darkness. But this isn't fiction, and it's not a distant future. These images are a stark reminder of a growing threat that's unfolding right now in the very heart of Europe. Across the continent, countries are grappling with an unprecedented energy crisis. Power grids are under immense strain, and the risk of widespread blackouts is no longer just a theoretical scenario. From bustling capitals to quiet rural towns, millions of people are facing the possibility of losing access to electricity, sometimes for hours, sometimes for days. The headlines warn of shortages, governments urge citizens to conserve energy, and experts debate how to keep the lights on as winter approaches. For families across Europe, the fear is real. Imagine sitting in your home, the lights flickering, unsure when or if they'll come back on. The truth is, the situation is even more unsettling than most people realize. Across Germany, Austria, Switzerland, France, Spain, and Italy, governments are no longer hiding it. They're actively warning citizens, prepare for a massive blackout. So here's what you need to do: have water, have food, have a flashlight, have a plan, and most importantly, have the will to survive. For decades, official emergency guidelines sat quietly, tucked away in the forgotten corners of government offices. These thick manuals, filled with instructions for crises most of us never imagined, gathered dust in drawers and on shelves, rarely seeing the light of day. They were relics of a different era, meant for officials, not ordinary citizens. But something has changed. Suddenly, these once-hidden documents are being pulled out, dusted off, and shared with the public in a way we've never seen before. Now, people everywhere are reading these guidelines, discussing them with friends and family, and even sharing them online. Pamphlets are being handed out in public spaces, and social media is buzzing with conversations about what to do in an emergency. It's as if a quiet alarm has been sounded, urging everyone to pay attention and prepare. This sudden shift raises unsettling questions. Why now? Why are these guidelines, which were once kept behind closed doors, being pushed into the spotlight? Is there something looming on the horizon that we're not being told about? The timing feels too deliberate to be a coincidence. As worried faces gather in living rooms and anxious conversations unfold late into the night, a sense of unease settles in. What is coming that they're not telling us? Are we truly prepared for what lies ahead, or are we only now beginning to understand the gravity of the situation? Let's rewind history for a second. Europe has seen dark winters before. During World War II, millions faced months without stable power. The oil crisis of the 1970s was a turning point in modern history, sending shockwaves through economies and societies around the world. In the United Kingdom, the sudden shortage of oil led to unprecedented measures. The government was forced to impose strict energy rationing, limiting how much fuel people could buy and when they could use electricity. Long lines formed at petrol stations, with anxious drivers waiting for hours, sometimes only to be turned away when supplies ran out. The crisis was felt in every home, as families were urged to conserve energy, turn off unnecessary lights, and even limit the use of household appliances. Newspapers blared headlines about the energy emergency, and the sense of uncertainty was palpable in the air. One of the most memorable and symbolic actions taken during this period was the early shutdown of television broadcasts. To save electricity, TV channels were ordered to end their programming at 10:30 p.m. each night. British living rooms, once filled with the glow of evening entertainment, were plunged into darkness. Families gathered around radios or candles, adapting to a new, quieter routine. The abrupt end to television became a nightly reminder of the crisis and a symbol of the sacrifices everyone was making. Decades later, in 2003, another dramatic energy crisis struck, this time in Italy. A massive blackout swept across the country, plunging entire cities into darkness overnight. 55 million people suddenly found themselves without electricity, relying on candles and flashlights to navigate their homes. The blackout served as a stark reminder that, even in the modern era, our dependence on energy remains a vulnerability. In February of 2021, Texas, one of the wealthiest and most developed states in the U.S., was brought to its knees by a historic and unexpected winter freeze. Temperatures plummeted far below what the region was prepared for, causing widespread chaos. Power grids failed, leaving millions without electricity or heat for days. Water pipes burst, flooding homes and businesses, while grocery store shelves emptied as people scrambled for supplies. Roads became impassable and emergency services were stretched thin. The state, known for its hot summers, was simply not equipped for such extreme cold. This event exposed just how vulnerable even the most prosperous places can be when faced with the unpredictable force of nature. You know, history really does have a pattern. Civilizations crumble when basic infrastructure fails. And Europe, proud and confident, has ignored the warnings for just way too long. Today's blackout risk isn't caused by just one factor. Honestly, it's a perfect storm. So first, let's talk about the reckless energy policies. In a desperate rush to appear green, governments around the world made the controversial decision to decommission nuclear power plants, despite their ability to provide reliable, low-carbon energy. Scenes of workers dismantling massive facilities and demolishing iconic cooling towers became symbols of this new direction. At the same time, coal, which had long been the backbone of energy security and economic growth for many nations, was suddenly demonized and pushed aside. Politicians and activists alike called for a rapid transition, often overlooking the complexities and consequences of such sweeping changes. As nuclear and coal facilities were shuttered, questions arose about how to maintain energy stability, affordability, and jobs for communities that depended on these industries for decades. Dependency on unreliable sources like wind and solar was accelerated, without a solid backup. But the sun doesn't always shine, the wind doesn't always blow. And batteries? They're expensive, fragile, and nowhere near ready to support an entire continent. For years, Europe's reliance on Russian natural gas quietly shaped the continent's energy landscape. This dependency, while convenient and cost-effective, was always a delicate balancing act, one that many experts warned could become a geopolitical time bomb. As European cities thrived and industries flourished, the invisible threads of gas pipelines tied their fate to decisions made far beyond their borders. The comfort of steady energy masked a growing vulnerability, as political tensions simmered just beneath the surface. When the Ukraine conflict erupted, those simmering tensions finally boiled over. Suddenly, the flow of gas from Russia slowed to a trickle, and the continent's energy security was thrown into chaos. The once reliable pipelines became symbols of uncertainty and risk, as leaders scrambled to respond to a rapidly changing situation. In capitals across Europe, fear and anxiety spread like wildfire. Emergency meetings were called, news outlets flashed urgent updates, and ordinary citizens watched events unfold with growing unease, realizing just how fragile their energy lifeline had become. Governments pretended to have solutions: subsidies, price caps, temporary handouts. But energy isn't something you can print like money. When it's gone, it's gone. Then comes the silent war, cyber attacks. In December of 2015, something unprecedented happened in Ukraine. Hackers managed to infiltrate the nation's power grid, targeting the very heart of its energy infrastructure. It wasn't just a technical hiccup or a minor disruption. This was a coordinated cyber attack, meticulously planned and executed by skilled adversaries. The attackers gained access to control systems, manipulating them remotely and shutting down substations across multiple regions. The result? Entire cities were plunged into darkness, right in the middle of a harsh Ukrainian winter. Homes, hospitals, and businesses lost power for hours, leaving hundreds of thousands of people without heat or light when they needed it most. The blackout wasn't just an inconvenience, it was a chilling reminder of how vulnerable modern societies are to digital threats. Imagine looking out over a city and seeing nothing but darkness, knowing it was caused not by a storm, but by someone behind a keyboard. The message, honestly, was clear. Digital warfare can paralyze entire nations, and not a single bullet needs to be fired. This attack marked a turning point, showing the world that critical infrastructure, like electricity, water, and transportation, could be weaponized in cyberspace. It forced governments and security experts everywhere to rethink what it means to defend a country in the digital age. Today, European infrastructure, well, it remains exposed. Every smart meter, every connected grid system, every centralized data hub, these are all potential targets. And let's not forget about sabotage. In a world obsessed with cyber threats and digital warfare, it's easy to overlook the very real dangers posed by physical attacks. But history has shown us that when it comes to causing chaos, sometimes the most direct methods are the most effective. The Nord Stream pipeline explosions were a brutal reminder. Not every attack is digital. In September 2022, a series of powerful blasts ripped through the undersea pipelines that carried natural gas from Russia to Europe. The explosion sent shockwaves through the energy markets and left governments scrambling for answers. The attack was a wake-up call, highlighting just how vulnerable our critical infrastructure can be to physical sabotage. Sometimes, enemies still prefer the old-fashioned way, real, physical destruction. Whether it's targeting power grids, transportation networks, or energy supplies, these acts of sabotage can have devastating consequences. They disrupt lives, threaten economies, and remind us that in the age of technology, brute force still has a place in modern conflict. All of this honestly makes one thing terrifyingly clear. The European grid is no longer invincible, it's vulnerable, delicate, and yeah, it's cracking. But what happens when the lights truly go out? In the first hours after the crisis begins, panic will ripple through every neighborhood. Supermarkets, once orderly and calm, will become battlegrounds for basic necessities. Within 48 hours, shelves will be stripped bare as desperate families scramble for food, water, and anything they can find. The sense of community will quickly give way to a survival mentality, with people grabbing whatever is left, sometimes even fighting over the last remaining items. Outside, banks will close their doors, locking out crowds of anxious customers hoping to withdraw their savings. The financial system, so often taken for granted, will grind to a halt, leaving people without access to cash or digital payments. The uncertainty will fuel even more chaos, as rumors spread and trust in institutions evaporates. At fuel stations, the situation will be no better. Long lines will snake around city blocks as people try to fill up their tanks, but supplies will run out quickly. Out-of-gas signs will appear everywhere, and frustrated drivers will be left stranded, unable to travel or evacuate. The sudden scarcity of fuel will paralyze transportation, making it nearly impossible for emergency services to respond or for families to reach safety. Hospitals, already stretched thin, will be pushed to the brink. Overwhelmed medical staff will have to make impossible choices, triaging patients based on their chances of survival. Emergency rooms will overflow with the sick and injured, while power outages and supply shortages make treatment even more difficult. The most vulnerable, children, the elderly, and those with chronic illnesses, will be at greatest risk as resources dwindle. As fear and frustration mount, public order will begin to break down. In some areas, police will struggle to contain unruly crowds and prevent looting. Storefronts will be smashed and streets will fill with debris as people take desperate measures to survive. The thin line between order and chaos will blur, and some neighborhoods may become too dangerous for even law enforcement to enter. In response, governments will deploy soldiers and emergency personnel to try to restore order. Officials will hold emergency meetings late into the night, struggling to coordinate a response as the situation spirals out of control. Military vehicles will patrol city streets, but even these efforts may not be enough to stem the tide of chaos. In these first days, the world as we know it will feel like it's slipping away, replaced by uncertainty and fear. Martial law, curfews, military on the streets, they're not out of the question. And in the shadows, the elites will already have their generators, their bunkers, their escape plans ready. While ordinary citizens are left in the dark, literally. Some speculate that these blackouts are not only accidents of bad policy but, useful crises. Useful to introduce radical changes. Digital IDs, centralized currencies, carbon rationing. Because if you control energy, you control everything. The long-term consequences are honestly terrifying. But you can prepare. Taking action now can make all the difference when the unexpected happens. Start by building a comprehensive survival kit for your household. Include essentials like first aid supplies, flashlights, batteries, and important documents. Don't forget to pack enough food and water to last at least several days for each person. Canned goods, dried foods, and bottled water are reliable choices that store well over time. Consider investing in alternative energy sources such as solar panels or portable generators to keep your home powered during outages. Learn basic survival skills, like how to purify water, cook without electricity, and administer first aid. These skills can be invaluable in an emergency. Most importantly, reconnect with your neighbors. Building a strong community network means you can share resources, exchange information, and support each other when times get tough. Preparation isn't just about supplies, it's about knowledge, resilience, and working together to face whatever comes your way. Because when the centralized system collapses, and it will, it's the communities who act early that will survive. Prepare, adapt, survive. Knowledge is your strongest weapon, and in uncertain times it can make all the difference. By learning, preparing, and staying informed, you give yourself and your loved ones the best chance to face any challenge that comes your way. Action is your shield. Taking steps now, no matter how small, can protect you when it matters most. Remember, emergencies don't wait for us to be ready, so start today. Stay alert to your surroundings, keep your plans up to date, and practice what you've learned. Stay strong because resilience is built one step at a time. You're not alone on this journey. Together, we can face whatever comes next. Thank you for watching, and for taking the time to invest in your safety and well-being. I'll see you in the next video where we'll continue to learn and grow together.